Picture this moment. You're standing on the pitch in the 90th minute. The score is tied, scouts are watching from the stands, and this could be the moment that changes everything. You get the ball in the perfect position, but then something goes wrong. Poor touch, bad decision, missed opportunity. The game ends, the scouts leave, and you're left wondering what went wrong. But here's the truth. It didn't start in that moment. It started weeks, months, even years before in your training, your habits, your daily choices. Most players will watch this video and think they're doing everything right, but they're making 7 deadly mistakes that are slowly killing their potential. These mistakes have destroyed more football dreams than lack of talent ever could. Today, we're breaking down the 7 mistakes that separate average players from those who make it to the top. If you recognize yourself in any of these, don't worry. Once you know what they are, you can fix them and completely transform your football journey. The first mistake is playing it safe all the time. Every training session, you do the same drills, practice with the same teammates, work on the same skills you're already good at. This feels comfortable, but comfort is the enemy of improvement. Your brain loves safety and routine, but football demands constant growth. When you only stick to what feels easy, you're not growing. You're actually getting worse compared to players who are pushing themselves. Every time you choose the easy option in training, you make it harder to handle pressure in real games. The best players in the world got there by constantly putting themselves in uncomfortable situations. They practiced with better players who made them work harder. They attempted skills that scared them. They took on challenges that made their hearts race. Start adding controlled difficulty to your training. Practice with players who are better than you. Attempt skills during games that you've only done in training. Take on more responsibility on the pitch. This isn't about being reckless. It's about systematically expanding what you can handle under pressure. The second mistake is watching endless football videos, reading tactics guides, and studying the game without actually putting any of it into practice. You collect knowledge like trophies, but knowledge without action is useless. Many players can tell you exactly how Messi dribbles, or how Guardiola sets up his tactics, but they can't execute a simple 1 versus 1, or make the right pass under pressure. The most successful footballers aren't the smartest. They're the ones who take small pieces of knowledge and immediately apply them on the pitch. Every time you learn something new about football, use it within 24 hours. Watch how a professional striker makes runs, then practice those exact runs in your next training session. Learn a new skill move, then try it in a small-sided game that week. Study how a defender positions himself, then focus on your positioning in your next match. This forces your brain to actually use the information instead of just storing it away to be forgotten. The gap between knowing something and being able to do it under pressure is huge, and the only way to close that gap is through immediate practice. The third mistake is perfectionism, disguised as having high standards. You wait for the perfect weather to practice. You won't attempt that skill move unless you're 100% sure it will work. You avoid shooting unless you have the perfect angle. This isn't being professional, it's being afraid. Perfectionism keeps you from starting, from trying, and from improving. While you're waiting for the perfect moment to attempt that through ball, another player is trying it, failing, learning, and getting better. While you're practicing the same safe passes, someone else is attempting risky passes and developing their range. The best players got there through thousands of imperfect attempts. Messi didn't wait until he could dribble perfectly before trying to beat defenders. Ronaldo didn't wait until he had perfect technique before taking free kicks. They tried, failed, learned, and improved. Start measuring success by how many times you attempt something, not by how perfect each attempt is. Count your mistakes as learning opportunities. The player who attempts 100 through balls and completes 30 will improve faster than the player who attempts 10 safe passes and completes all of them. And the fourth mistake is surrounding yourself with the wrong people. If everyone around you has low standards, complains about training, or doesn't take football seriously, you'll unconsciously adopt their mentality. Your potential is contagious, but so is mediocrity. The players you train with, hang out with, and talk football with are shaping your mindset every single day. If you're always the most dedicated player in your group, you're not inspiring others. You're limiting yourself. Growth requires being around people who challenge you and make you uncomfortable with your current level. Look at any professional footballer's background, and you'll find they were surrounded by other serious players from a young age. They trained in academies with like-minded teammates. They had coaches who demanded excellence. They were pushed by the standards of those around them. Find training partners who are better than you. Join teams or groups where you're initially one of the weaker players. Seek out coaches and mentors who have higher standards than you're used to. This doesn't mean abandoning loyal friends, but it means expanding your circle to include people who elevate your game. The fifth mistake is switching training methods, positions, or focus areas too quickly. When you don't see immediate results, you abandon what you're doing and try something completely different. This keeps you in permanent beginner mode and prevents you from developing real expertise. Every skill in football takes time to develop. Shooting accuracy doesn't improve overnight. Passing vision takes months of focused practice. Tactical understanding develops over seasons, not weeks. But the period right before a breakthrough often feels like you're making no progress at all. The most successful players commit to approaches for longer than feels comfortable. They stick with training methods even when results don't come immediately. They understand that improvement in football is rarely linear. There are plateaus followed by sudden jumps in ability. Set minimum time periods before you're allowed to change your training focus. If you're working on first touch, commit to focusing on it for at least 2 months. If you're learning a new position, give yourself a full season before evaluating your progress. Document small improvements daily so you can see progress that might otherwise go unnoticed. The sixth mistake is treating your energy like it's unlimited instead of your most valuable resource. You use your best energy on low importance activities and then approach your most crucial training when you're already tired and unfocused. Peak performance isn't about training harder, it's about training smart. Your mental and physical energy fluctuate throughout the day in predictable patterns. Most players remain unconscious of these patterns and end up doing their most important skill work when their energy is lowest. Professional footballers structure their entire day around optimizing their energy for performing. Track your energy patterns for 1 week. Note when you feel most alert, focused, and explosive versus when you struggle with basic skills. Design your training schedule around these natural rhythms instead of fighting against them. Use your peak energy windows exclusively for the skills that matter most for your development. The seventh and most damaging mistake is making decisions based on what feels good now, instead of what your future footballer self needs. Every choice you make today either helps or hurts the player you'll become tomorrow. The habits you build now become the foundation of your future abilities. The fitness work you do today determines how you'll perform in crucial moments next season. The technical skills you develop now become the tools you'll use to solve problems in future matches. Most players consistently choose immediate comfort over long-term benefit. They skip the extra shooting practice because they're tired. They avoid the difficult defensive drills because they're not fun. They don't work on their weak foot because it's frustrating. Each of these choices steals from their future potential. Before making any decision in your football journey, ask what your future self would thank you for. Before skipping that extra training session, consider what the player you want to become needs you to do right now. Before avoiding uncomfortable challenges, remember that your future success depends on your present discipline. These 7 mistakes work in the shadows, quietly destroying football dreams while players focus on obvious obstacles. Staying comfortable keeps you average. Learning without doing creates false confidence. Perfectionism prevents you from starting. The wrong social circle limits your ceiling. Constantly switching approaches keeps you starting over. Ignoring energy patterns wastes your best efforts. Not considering your future self ensures you'll always feel behind. Recognizing these mistakes is just the first step. Recognition without action is just another form of procrastination. Pick the mistake that hits closest to home right now. Make one specific change in your next training session. Small corrections compound into massive transformations, but only when you actually begin. Your potential as a footballer isn't waiting for better facilities, more opportunities, or perfect conditions. Your potential is waiting for you to stop making these mistakes and start making choices worthy of the player you're capable of becoming. That moment isn't someday, it's right now. If you're ready to accelerate your development and unlock your full potential as a footballer, check out the Ultimate Footballer Bundle, a comprehensive collection of guides designed to elevate every aspect of your game. Use code F50 at checkout for 50% off your purchase. For those who prefer to focus on specific areas, individual guides are also available to target your unique development needs. Not ready to invest yet? Join the free newsletter to receive insightful football knowledge delivered weekly, straight to your inbox. Every edition contains actionable strategies and expert insights to help you consistently progress toward your goals. Whether you choose the complete bundle, individual guides, or the free newsletter, you're taking the crucial first step toward becoming the footballer your potential demands you to be. Every weekend, across thousands of football pitches, the same scene plays out. A player attempts something ambitious, a through ball that doesn't quite make it, a skill move that ends with the ball rolling to an opponent, a shot that flies over the crossbar, and immediately the shouting begins. Teammates throw their hands up in frustration. Coaches bark instructions about playing it safe. Parents on the sideline shake their heads in disappointment. The player shrinks. The next time a similar opportunity arises, they choose the simple pass, the safe option, the predictable play. Another potentially great footballer has been conditioned to fear failure, and with it, they've lost the very thing that could have made them exceptional. This is the hidden epidemic destroying football talent at every level. Not poor technique, not lack of fitness, not tactical ignorance. The systematic elimination of boldness through the fear of making mistakes. Players are being programmed to avoid the very experiences that would accelerate their development faster than any training drill or tactical session ever could. Here's what nobody wants to acknowledge about football development. The players who reach the highest levels aren't the ones who make the fewest mistakes. They're the ones who've made the most mistakes and learned to weaponize them. Every elite player has a graveyard of failed attempts behind their success. The difference is how they process those failures. Watch any professional match, and you'll see something remarkable. The best players on the pitch are constantly attempting things that don't work. Messi loses the ball more than most players because he attempts more than most players. Neymar gets tackled frequently because he's always probing for the impossible pass or the audacious skill. Kevin De Bruyne's passing statistics show numerous incomplete passes because he's always searching for the killer ball that others wouldn't even see. The amateur player sees these failures as mistakes to be avoided. The elite player sees them as data to be processed. Each unsuccessful attempt provides crucial information about timing, space, defensive positioning, and decision-making that no coach could ever teach in a classroom setting. Modern football culture has created a generation of players who are terrified of individual expression. Youth systems prioritize avoiding mistakes over creating breakthrough moments. Coaches measure success by possession statistics rather than creative attempts. Parents celebrate the player who never loses the ball over the one who creates dangerous situations. This systematic suppression of risk-taking creates technically sound but creatively bankrupt players. They can execute predetermined patterns flawlessly, but crumble when faced with unique situations that require improvisation. They become football robots, efficient but predictable, safe but forgettable. The irony is devastating. The very failures that coaches and parents try to eliminate are the experiences that would transform average players into exceptional ones. Every mistake contains lessons that successful plays simply cannot provide. Every failure builds mental resilience that comfortable success never develops. Every moment of adversity creates character that smooth sailing never forges. The revolutionary shift happens when failure stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you actively pursue for growth. Elite performers in every field understand this principle. They don't just accept failure as inevitable. They seek it out as the fastest path to improvement. In football terms, this means completely redefining what constitutes a successful training session or match performance. Success isn't measured by how few mistakes you make, but by how many meaningful attempts you undertake. A player who tries 5 ambitious through balls and completes 2 has learned more about timing and defensive reading than a player who makes 20 safe sideways passes. This mindset transformation requires understanding that football improvement happens at the edge of your current capabilities. If you're not regularly failing at things, you're not challenging yourself sufficiently. You're operating in your comfort zone, which by definition means you're not growing. The player who becomes comfortable with the temporary discomfort of failure gains access to accelerated learning that the safety-first player will never experience. They develop resilience, creativity, and problem-solving abilities that become their greatest competitive advantages. Neuroscience reveals why failure is such a powerful learning accelerator. When things go wrong, your brain releases stress hormones that heighten attention and memory formation. The moments after a mistake are when your neural pathways are most receptive to new information and pattern recognition. Successful plays feel good, but provide limited learning opportunities because everything worked as expected. Failed attempts create cognitive tension that forces your brain to analyze what went wrong, explore alternative approaches, and develop new solutions. This neurological response to failure literally rewires your brain to become more adaptable and creative. Players who embrace this biological reality gain a massive developmental advantage. While others are avoiding the discomfort of failure, they're actively seeking the enhanced learning states that only come from pushing beyond their current limitations. They're upgrading their football intelligence through experiences that comfortable players never encounter. The pathway to using failure as fuel requires developing specific mental skills that most players never cultivate. The first is emotional regulation during setbacks. When a risky play doesn't work, the natural response is frustration, embarrassment, or self-doubt. These emotional reactions prevent learning and make players less likely to attempt similar plays in the future. Developing failure resilience means training yourself to respond to mistakes with curiosity rather than judgment. Instead of thinking, "That was stupid," the mindset becomes, "That's interesting. What can that teach me?" This subtle shift in internal dialogue transforms every failure from a source of shame into a source of valuable information. The second skill is maintaining confidence through adversity. One failed attempt doesn't mean you're not good enough to try again. 3 failed attempts doesn't mean you should stop being ambitious. Elite players understand that breakthrough moments often come after a series of near misses, and they maintain their willingness to attempt difficult plays regardless of recent outcomes. Implementing this failure-embracing mindset requires revolutionizing how you approach training. Instead of drilling techniques until they become automatic, start deliberately practicing at the edge of your capabilities where failure is not just possible, but probable. Set training goals based on attempt quality rather than success rates. Aim to try 10 ambitious passes per session, rather than complete 20 safe ones. Focus on attempting skills in pressure situations, rather than perfecting them in isolation. Create scenarios where failure is the expected outcome initially, then gradually improve through repeated exposure to challenging conditions. This approach transforms training from a place where you demonstrate existing abilities into a laboratory where you develop new ones. Every training session becomes an opportunity to expand your comfort zone, rather than reinforce your current limitations. Transitioning this mindset from training to actual matches requires courage that most players never develop. The fear of letting teammates down or facing criticism keeps players locked in predictable patterns during games when the stakes feel higher. The breakthrough comes from understanding that your primary responsibility isn't to avoid mistakes, but to create possibilities that others cannot. A winger who never loses the ball because they never take on defenders is actually less valuable than one who beats their opponent 60% of the time, despite failing 40% of attempts. Match situations become opportunities to test your developing skills under real pressure, rather than chances to prove you're already perfect. This perspective shift removes the burden of needing to succeed every time, and replaces it with the excitement of discovering what you're capable of when you push your boundaries. The players who embrace failure as fuel develop differently than their safety-first peers. They become comfortable with uncertainty, skilled at improvisation, and mentally resilient under pressure. These qualities compound over time, creating exponential rather than linear improvement curves. More importantly, they develop an identity as problem solvers rather than mistake avoiders. When faced with new challenges, their instinct is to experiment and adapt rather than retreat to familiar patterns. This makes them invaluable to teams and attractive to coaches who understand that football's biggest moments require players willing to attempt what others won't. The choice is simple, but not easy. Continue avoiding failure and accept the limitations that come with playing it safe, or embrace the temporary discomfort of mistakes in exchange for the accelerated growth that only comes from pushing boundaries. Every failed attempt is a deposit in your development account. Every mistake is a lesson your competitors are too afraid to learn. Every moment of adversity is strengthening your ability to perform when others crumble under pressure. The question isn't whether you'll face failure in football. The question is whether you'll use it to become everything you're capable of becoming, or let it convince you to become less than you could be. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, like this video, and to comment down below what you learnt most from this video. And as always, enjoy the beautiful game. Picture this, you're 17 years old, weighing barely 60 kilograms, stepping onto the pitch against grown men who've been playing professional football for years. Most players would hide, play it safe, pass the ball quickly, and pray they don't get embarrassed. But instead, Neymar decides to nutmeg the opposition, flick the ball over players, and celebrate like he owned the stadium. That's not talent. That's a completely different operating system running in his brain. While other technically gifted players crumble when the stakes get real, Neymar gets more creative, more audacious, more confident. What mental software is he running that you're not? By the end of this video, you'll have the exact psychological framework that separates confident players from talented players who never make it. Let me introduce you to the blueprint method, understanding how greatness is constructed by examining the building blocks that most people never see. Before Neymar became the showboat superstar, he was just another skinny kid from Brazil who had to earn his place through pure mental strength. He started with street football and futsal in São Vicente before joining Santos Youth Academy at 11. But he wasn't just playing with kids his own age having fun. He was constantly playing against much older, physically stronger players in the neighborhood court. In these environments, he learned how to use skill and creativity to overcome physical disadvantages, develop incredible close control under pressure, and build mental toughness when nobody's going to protect you. The streets taught him to be fearless. No referees, no sympathy for being young or small, no participation trophies. You either figured out how to survive through skill, or you got humiliated. Santos refined his raw talent, but that warrior mentality was forged on those concrete courts where mercy didn't exist. By 16, he was making his mark in the Copa São Paulo against older, more experienced youth players. But the confidence came from years of proving himself where the stakes felt life or death. This pattern shows up everywhere. Ronaldinho, Kaká, Robinho, even Pelé. They all learned to impose their will through skill when size wasn't on their side. When you've survived the toughest testing ground, everything else feels manageable. Here's what most players get completely wrong. They think confidence is built in isolation, practicing skills alone until they feel ready to compete. But football confidence isn't built through individual drills. It's forged through battle. Solo training builds technique, muscle memory, and coordination. But confidence? That only comes from proving yourself against live opponents who are actively trying to stop you, hurt you, and make you look stupid. Think about Neymar's Santos Academy days. He wasn't just the golden boy everyone protected. He was constantly tested against players who wanted to prove they were better than this overhyped kid who got all the attention. Every training session was a war. Every scrimmage was an opportunity for someone to humble him. And instead of breaking his confidence, this constant pressure made him stronger. Real opponents teach you things no cone drill ever could. How to handle aggressive defending when someone's literally trying to kick you off the ball. How to stay calm when things get physical and the referee isn't calling everything. How to find creative solutions when your first option doesn't work and you're running out of space. Most importantly, real competition teaches you how to bounce back when you get tackled hard, when your skill doesn't work, when you make a mistake in front of people who want you to fail. This is why so many technically gifted players never make it. They can juggle a ball 1,000 times, they can hit perfect passes against cones, but the moment they face real pressure from real opponents, they crumble. If you want to build battle-tested confidence like Neymar, you need to actively seek harder challenges. Stop avoiding competitive situations. Join pickup games where you don't know anyone. Accept invitations to play with better, older players. Put yourself in uncomfortable situations where you have to prove yourself. Because here's the truth. Every comfort zone you stay in is a confidence opportunity you're missing. Let me paint you a picture that changes everything about how you view mistakes. In Neymar's early professional matches at Santos, he would often get dispossessed 6, 7, or even up to 10 times in a single game, maybe even more. Defenders would tackle him hard, crowd him, do everything possible to frustrate his style of play. But here's what separated him from everyone else. He never stopped trying his signature moves and dribbles. After getting tackled for the 5th time, most players start second-guessing themselves. They start playing it safe, passing backwards, avoiding the situations that got them in trouble. Not Neymar. He had what I call selective memory in the moment. Champions remember the successes and forget the failures when it matters. Every time he touched the ball, it was like the previous mistakes never happened. This isn't natural. This is trained. Most players get trapped in their heads after one failed dribble. Suddenly they're passing sideways, playing it safe, hiding from the ball, trying not to make another mistake instead of trying to create something special. But Neymar operated with a completely different mindset. Every touch is a new opportunity. Every dribble attempt is independent of the last one. The scoreboard might say you've lost the ball 6 times, but in your mind, you're always at 0 failures, infinite possibilities. Now here's the psychological reality most players never understand. Your fear of failure doesn't come from football. It comes from childhood programming. Somewhere in your past, you learned that making mistakes meant judgment, disappointment, or rejection. Maybe a coach yelled at you when you tried a skill and lost the ball. Maybe teammates laughed when you missed an easy chance. Maybe a parent made a face that told you trying and failing was worse than not trying at all. Your subconscious brain took that information and created a survival mechanism. Avoid situations where you might fail, because failure threatens your social acceptance, and social rejection feels like death. But champions like Neymar found a way to override that programming. They trained their minds to separate performance mistakes from personal worth. A failed dribble doesn't mean you're not good enough. It means you're gathering information about what works and what doesn't. Here's something nobody talks about that completely changed how I understand confidence. Neymar doesn't just handle pressure, he actively seeks it. Think about his biggest moments: World Cup at 22, Champions League games against the biggest clubs in the world, El Clásicos, where the entire world is watching. He doesn't just perform in these situations, he puts on a show. He becomes more creative, more audacious, more willing to try things that could either make him look like a genius or completely embarrass him. This isn't natural. Most humans have a biological fear of being watched and judged. Psychologists call it the spotlight effect. We assume everyone is watching and critiquing our every move. But Neymar learned to flip this fear into fuel through what I call the spotlight principle. Make the spotlight your stage, not your interrogation room. Here's the difference. Stage mindset says, everyone's watching me perform something amazing. Interrogation mindset says, everyone's watching me potentially mess up. Same situation, completely different mental framework, totally different result. Neymar built this by starting with small audiences, family, friends at the local courts, and gradually increasing the stake. But more importantly, he learned to see attention as energy he could absorb and convert into better performance. When 80,000 people are screaming, most players feel that as pressure. Neymar feels it as electricity he can channel into his game. Here's your action step. Next time you play, instead of trying to hide from attention, actively seek moments where people will watch you. Take the corner kicks, demand the ball in tight spaces, volunteer for the pressure situation. Train your brain to associate attention with opportunity, not threat, because the spotlight isn't there to expose your weaknesses, it's there to illuminate your greatness. Alright, now I'm going to give you the practical framework for actually building this mindset. Understanding the psychology is one thing, implementing it is what separates viewers from players. First step, recognition. After each training session or match, identify the exact moment you started playing scared. What triggered it? Was it a bad touch? A missed pass? Someone shouting instructions? Find the pattern, because you can't fix what you don't acknowledge. Second step, reframe. Start viewing failed attempts as data collection, not personal failures. When you lose the ball trying a skill, don't think, I'm not good enough. Think, that defender reacts quickly to my left foot fake. Let me try going right next time. Same outcome, completely different meaning. Third step, reset protocol. Every time you lose the ball or miss a skill, create a mental reset. It could be clapping your hands once, taking a deep breath, whatever feels right for you. Then immediately position yourself to receive the ball again. This trains your brain that mistakes don't define you. They're just temporary events. Fourth step, progressive exposure. Start with low pressure environments and gradually increase the stakes. Master your confidence in training, then friendly matches, then competitive games, then high stakes situations. Don't jump straight into the deep end. Build your tolerance systematically. The goal isn't to eliminate fear. It's to train your nervous system to stay calm and creative under pressure. Just like in those early futsal games, where Neymar learned that pressure is just another opponent you can beat with the right mindset. Now let me share with you the most powerful technique that almost nobody talks about, but every top performer uses whether they realize it or not. Your everyday personality, the version of you that worries about school, social media likes, what people think of your outfit. That person isn't designed for the football battlefield. Think about it. The version of you that sits quietly in class, follows rules, tries not to cause trouble. That personality is built for social harmony, not for nutmegging defenders and celebrating like you own the stadium. That's why top performers create what I call a game mode persona, completely separate from their regular self. Neymar is a perfect example of this. While he's naturally confident and expressive off the pitch, on the field, he amplifies this into something completely different. A showboat who nutmegs defenders for fun, celebrates every skill like it's an art form, and plays with this unshakable belief that says, I'm the most entertaining player on this pitch. This isn't fake, it's strategic compartmentalization. Here's how to build your own football persona in 5 steps. Step 1, define the arena. Where does this version of you exist? During matches, training sessions, even certain drills? Pick your battlefield and be specific. Step 2, character traits. What does confident you look like in detail? Does he walk differently onto the pitch? Talk to teammates with more authority? Take on defenders without hesitation? Make this vivid and emotionally connected. Step 3, visual anchor. Create a mental image that represents this energy. It could be an animal, a jaguar stalking prey, a wolf leading the pack. It could be a movie character or an idealized version of yourself, something that when you picture it, you feel that confidence energy. Step 4, activation ritual. Find a physical trigger that switches you into this mode. It could be adjusting your socks a certain way, touching the ball 3 times before you start playing, tapping your chest twice, something that when you do it, your body knows it's time, he's here. Step 5, permission to perform. This is crucial. Your football persona has permission to be cocky, to showboat, to take risks that normal you would never dare attempt. He has permission to celebrate skills, to try impossible passes, to play like he's the best player on the field, even when he's not. Here's the key. When the game ends, you consciously switch back to regular you. You leave that version of yourself on the field and go back to being the thoughtful, respectful person you are off the pitch. This protects your emotional stability while unleashing your football potential. You're not pretending. You're not faking anything. You're giving permission to a side of you that has always been inside but has been buried by social conditioning, fear, and the need to fit in. But here's the thing. Understanding these concepts intellectually is only 10% of the battle. The other 90% is having a systematic approach to implement them consistently. That's exactly why I created the Athlete Mentality Framework. It's the complete psychological training system that takes everything we just discussed and gives you a step-by-step roadmap to build unshakable confidence. Inside, you'll get the exact daily mental training routines used by professional athletes, pressure simulation exercises that prepare you for any situation, confidence-building protocols for before, during, and after matches. Plus, you'll get 3 bonus ebooks: the Complete Position Mastery Guide, the Footballer Speed Blueprint, and the Complete Nutrition and Recovery Guide. If you're serious about transforming your mental game and finally playing with the confidence your skills deserve, check the link in the description below. But remember this: every day you delay working on your psychology is another day that talented players with weaker mentalities are getting ahead of you, simply because they're willing to do the mental work. Don't let that be your story. The framework is there. The roadmap is clear. The only question is, are you ready to become the confident version of yourself that's been waiting to break free? So most importantly, enjoy the beautiful game.